LMFM.ie. Thanks for joining us again this Thursday afternoon. On the show today, Gay Byrne will be joining me later on. Sinead Kane, a remarkable story, young lady with visual impairment who's done so well in life. And Tina Leonard's here. She's a solicitor, mediator, writer, keynote speaker, blogger and director of Ablevision Ireland. And she's even had time to take up running last year to raise funds for blind children. She's on the line with me this afternoon from Cork. Good afternoon, Sinead Kane.
Good afternoon, Gerry. Thanks very much for having me on the show.
I'm delighted to talk to you today. Sinead, can you tell our listeners, how visually impaired are you?
Well, I have 5% vision. I have 4 eye conditions: aniridia, coloboma, nystagmus and glaucoma. So aniridia is where I take in too much light. The iris part of my eye is missing. So the difficulties that I kind of encounter is I take in too much light. So like you would take light through your pupil, whereas because I don't have an iris, I'm taking it in through the whole of my eye, you see. And I suppose with the glaucoma then, the glaucoma is where there's high pressure in your eye, so I have to take in drops twice a day, and it's essential that I take in those drops, because if I don't, then I'll lose the limited amount of vision that I do have. So I do, my mobility is quite good. Doctors are surprised how good my mobility is. They kind of think that maybe I should be using a guide dog, but I sometimes use a white cane. I more so use a white symbol stick. But I think society gets confused by the term registered as blind, because that's what I am. I'm registered as blind, but they kind of associate that with being totally blind, but it actually means 5% vision or less.
And you've been like this from birth? From birth,
yeah, it's congenital. So I suppose living with my disability, I have to be very patient with myself. I've learned the gift of patience, because there's sometimes people would say things to you and you just have to bite your tongue and just realise that they're not educated in terms of, say, disability. And I suppose be patient with myself as well. Be patient with, say, for example, driving. I'll never be able to drive. If I drove a car, I'd probably crash it. But I suppose just being able to accept that and accept things I cannot change. So, but you were mentioning there all the things that I'm qualified at.
Yes.
I suppose I'm also a director of Ablevision Ireland, and Ablevision is in relation to intellectually impaired persons. It's an exciting new Irish project, and because of it being disability related, that's why I wanted to get involved with it, because I believe in their vision and their mission. And their mission is basically they focus on ability and they focus on the creativity, and they're very focused on teamwork. And the founder of Ablevision Ireland is John Delaney, and Ablevision Ireland is based on Ablevision Boston, where students with intellectual disabilities pair up with other students on media courses, and it saves them going to sheltered employment every day. It shows that persons with intellectual disabilities can be very productive. So a piece of good news there recently is that the participants, the crew, they had their first documentary aired on Sky Television on Channel 212 or FreeSat 401. And I suppose this was a huge achievement for the students, because it just showed their ability. It was them who put together the documentary. And another kind of achievement that is going to be coming down the line is in May, there's the Ablevision Ireland Film Festival. So if people want to find out more about that, they can go onto the Ablevision Ireland website. And I just think it's a very, very worthwhile project, and that's why it's actually fun. It's organised by a local man in your area, John Delaney, and other people, celebrities from your area. Gavin Duffy from Dragon's Den.
Yes.
He was recently involved, and I suppose I have huge admiration for Gavin Duffy. Like, there was a launch of the Ablevision Ireland get together in November, and I went up to Kilsharvan House, and a beautiful setting, and just to see Gavin kind of connect with the participants, with the crew, and it just for me was all dropping, like,
unbelievable. So. And you also have a link with DKIT, isn't that right? They're involved in some way.
Yeah, they're involved. So the course, the Ablevision, started out in DKIT, and the plan is to bring this project all around the country. And I know that in time to come, Ireland is going to be hearing a lot more about Ablevision Ireland, because that's the vision and the mission, and everybody in with the project is very determined with that. So that's why I'm involved, because when it comes to Cork, and I know it will be coming to Cork, I will be promoting it. And I think people, if there's anybody around the country who wants to start getting it involved to bring it to their part of the country, then they can go onto the website or they can contact John. I think as well, it just, for the crew that's involved, it just shows that, like, because I was always told throughout my life that, oh, you can't do this or you can't do that, and I suppose I had people around me who didn't believe in me, and I think that's why this documentary got made, because a lot of people around the crew, the participants, believed in them, that they had the capacity to make this documentary themselves. And I suppose as a reward now, another piece of good news is the crew is actually getting to go to the set of The Voice, you know, the programme The Voice.
Yes.
So that's adding a bit of glamour to their life, that they're getting to go to that, and that was organised again by Gavin's wife, Orla Carmody. So I suppose I just look at Gavin and I look at Orla and I look at John, and I suppose that's why I want to be working with them on this project, because they put a lot of energy and thought into it. So.
And Sinead, can I ask you just something else about yourself? And look, what work you're doing, and as you say, anybody can achieve. That's the message you're getting across. You're a tough nut, because you came through a lot at school, and then when you went on to third level, you were advised by the people there not to study law. On you went, and you became the first person with visual impairment to qualify. Is that right, as a solicitor?
Yeah, well, it was actually in secondary school that I was advised not to go on to study law, because I was told that law was a reading-based subject, and therefore there was no point me doing it. And that, and what's funny about the whole thing is that the person actually said to me, the careers advisor teacher said, if your disability was your legs, if you were paralysed, you'd be able to do law, because with your eyes, you study with your eyes. So, as in, you don't study with your legs, so if you're sitting in a wheelchair. But I just thought to myself, what is this woman talking about? And I suppose that's when the pendulum swung for me, because when I was in secondary school, I was very badly bullied. When I was in primary school, I was very badly bullied. It resulted in severe consequences in my life. But that's when the pendulum swung for me, when I was 17, when I said to myself, okay, I'm actually going to prove this lady wrong. And then I went on, but it wasn't all plain sailing. Like in second year, I decided that I wanted to give it up, because it was very hard, because these are kind of the difficulties I have with my disability. I have pain in my eyes, I get pain in my lower back from bending over. It takes me maybe a longer amount of time to do reading. I have to spread out the reading. So in second year, I decided, okay, well, this is all just too much hard work. I'm just going to give up law. And then my mother decided to bring me to London, and I thought I was going on a shopping trip, but I actually didn't go on a shopping trip. I ended up at the Law Society in Chancery Lane. And the reason why I ended up in the Law Society is because my mother brought me over to meet a judge who's totally blind. And when I met him, then I just knew then, okay, Sinead, cop yourself on. If he can do it, then you can do it. So I came back to Ireland, and I was full of confidence then, and then I didn't look back, and I went on and I got my law degree, I got my LLM, and I qualified as a solicitor. So I think life is all about creating opportunities for yourself and positive thinking, because that's what I strive every day, to create opportunities in my life and to consistently do it and to work hard at doing it. Because there last September, I went over to London, I met David Plunkett, a man who's totally blind. He was at a Home Secretary, and that just shows in politics that you can achieve in politics. I'm also interested in women in politics as well, and the Women for Election, they're doing great work as well. And I don't know, it's just about creating opportunities for yourself, and I suppose that's what I hope to do each day, and that's kind of my goal anyway. And also to be authentic and have honest conversation with myself. I think the best gift that you can give yourself is to just know yourself, because they're like we live in a society where you're taught to be everybody but yourself. So like you're taught that if you're extremely slim, then that'll bring you happiness. If you've loads of money, that will bring you happiness. But we don't. So we focus on all the how to as opposed to what actually gets in the way. And it's things like fear and shame, rejection, vulnerability. And people say that vulnerability is a weakness, and a lot of people look at me and they see me with a disability and they think that's a very vulnerable person. But I might have a bit of vulnerability, but I think vulnerability is actually a good thing, because when you express your vulnerability, you show your courage. Because each day I have to show courage in my life to overcome different barriers. Some days I have to reach out for help with assistance with different things. And when you reach out for help, asking people to help you, it requires having courage.
Sinead, you are a fantastic woman. I want listeners to find out more about you. Where can they get you on the net and log on to find out more?
Yeah, well, I'm on the net on www.sineadkane.ie, and I suppose just as I was saying earlier about the Ablevision Ireland website, like I'm going to be doing a lot of work with Ablevision over the next number of months, and I would strongly urge people to go onto that website as well. And I was just thinking, Gerry, because I've spoke a bit about Ablevision Ireland on the radio with you, I was thinking that I can tell you about it, and I suppose you're listening to my story. But I think, say, even in terms of Ablevision, that it's best to hear the story for themselves. So you never know, you might bring the crew into your studio someday, maybe even around the time of the film festival that they're organising in May, and let the students themselves tell you how they're getting on with the project.
I'd be delighted to, Sinead, and it's been a real pleasure talking to you this afternoon. Sinead Kane with a K.ie. You'll find out more about this wonderful lady. Thanks a million for joining me.
Thank you very much, Gerry.
Take care of yourself. That's Sinead Kane there. And we will indeed talk to the people in Ablevision who are involved with DKIT in a big project there, as you heard, that's going to be rolled out nationally. Isn't she a wonderful woman with such restricted vision and all she's gone on to achieve? The first ever to qualify as a solicitor, mediator, writer, keynote speaker. She's fantastic. I have great admiration for her, and she really does talk an awful lot of sense about life and how to deal with it, doesn't she? Late Lunch, LMFM Radio. Yes, we're in the last day of January. 14 days' time, it's the big love-in, Valentine's Day. I've something to put to you. Would you like to go to the Cunningham Arms in Slane? It's just recently been renovated. It's absolutely beautiful, for a slap-up Valentine's meal for two. Well, if you'd like to go, this is the deal. I'm looking for couples to pop into me next week on the show, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. We're looking for two each day to have a chat with me about themselves. Where did you meet? What's his favourite colour? What's her favourite perfume? You know the deal, sort of the Mr. and Mrs. thing of old. But we want you to come in here to me, two couples a day. Each day, someone will be going to the Cunningham Arms, and I promise whoever comes as well will also get a special treat from the Cunningham Arms as well next week. If you want to have a bit of crack with me on late lunch, how do you get in on the deal here? Give us a shout, 1850 715 958. That's our telephone number. Call in now and just leave your details with us, or you can text me now, 53958. It'll cost you 20 cents. Thanks to LMFM, or you can email us to latelunch@lmfm.ie. Thanks for joining us again this Thursday afternoon. On the show today, Gay Byrne will be joining me later on. Sinead Kane, a remarkable story, young lady with visual impairment who's done so well in life, and Tina Leonard's here. And topically this time, we're talking about food labelling in the light of the burgers, and also about vouchers with HMV going. What's the story with vouchers? But first, on the show this afternoon, my first guest is a successful businessman in his own right, and he's chairman of the Des Smith Drogheda Youth Foundation. Though originally from the Big Smoke, his association with the North East goes back a long way, as he's about to tell us. Ray Moore, you're very welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for joining me. I love that deep voice. The city, Dublin, is where you came from, but it goes back a long way, doesn't it?
Well, it goes back quite a long way. My parents had a great graw for Mornington. And in fact, my mother and father in 1952 went to Mornington on their honeymoon, and they got the bus down, and that's a long time ago. As
and
know.
You weren't.
I was still a long twinkle away
at that stage. But your dad and mum came here first, and they fell in love with the place.
They fell in love with the place, absolutely. So much so that in 1964 we came down on a camping holiday, and we were camping just opposite the Boyne, pretty close to the tower, the Maiden Tower, and my dad happened to see that one of the railway carriages were up for sale. So lo and behold, he went borrowing from uncles and aunts, and for the grand sum of £320 he bought a railway carriage. Now at the time it had no running water, no electricity. So anyway, from that year on, once school was out, into my dad's, at the time, Volkswagen minibus, to bring all our gang, all 5 boys, down every summer. And that's where my love for the area came.
So it was summer holiday time then for you and your family to Mornington, to the carriage. I have to tell you, I remember those carriages.
We had some great time.
It was simple, Ray, but I'm sure your summer was full every year.
Oh, absolutely. And, you know, it wasn't the time for pocket money. I mean, but if you wanted to get some money, you had to find some way of rustling up a few bob. So at the time, you could go and collect empty lemonade bottles, you know, and you might get 2p. But we found another way of making a few bob. We went onto the golf course looking for golf balls, and then sell them to the members. But that didn't go down too well with the local pro.
So late down, Betty's down. The end of it, of course, comes down there, right beside Mornington.
Yes, yeah.
But you were an entrepreneur, you know, even at that age.
Well, it's either that or starve.
Necessity, the mother of invention,
Absolutely,
as they say.
Absolutely.
But the carriage and your summer holidays there, and then when it came your turn to grow up and set out on your own life and that, you decided to set up shop here.
Well, yeah, one of the things I didn't touch on was eventually Leighton and Bettystown invited me to become a member in 1968, because I was kind of sneaking in without paying, and someone said, look, come up here, we'll sign you in, and for the grand total of £1, which I had made from selling golf balls, I became a member, and that's where my association came.
So the members sponsored you, they lost the balls, you sold them, and you got in. And then eventually, of course, you have been captain of Leighton and Bettystown. Was that special? It was. It was a fantastic honour. You know, I'd been in the club quite a long time, and it was a shock to me, actually, but it was a great honour, and I must say I absolutely loved my year.
I had to kind of work very hard afterwards to build up my relationship with my wife again, because she said to me one time, can you give me a good photograph of yourself, because I don't see you these days.
But the captain's role is demanding when you're in there for the year, isn't it? You're all over the place, really.
You're almost like the PR officer. You're going around shaking hands, and it's good, but it was a great honour.
Yeah, and from a little fella, as I said, that snuck in, was put out, and then eventually got in by...
I think if some of the members had heard that story, they might have changed their mind, but however.
You mightn't have been elected. But as I said a little earlier, you did then settle in the area yourself.
Yeah. Basically, I got married in 1978 to Maria. We rented a house for a little while in Dublin, and eventually we bought our first house in Coney Hall in Mornington. I remember very well, we moved in on the 22nd of December 1979. And we didn't have very much, but we had our own house, and it was wonderful. And obviously, from my point of view too, I was no more than a driving away from the golf course.
So it was a win-win all around.
Absolutely.
22nd of December, Christmas Day on the 25th. Were you all right that everything happened? Yeah, it did.
It was wonderful, great. And
wonderful. You'll always remember the date is in your mind, as they say. Now, in business terms and your work life, where did that take you? Well,
I got into the steel business, probably I backed into it by accident in 1979 or 1977, and then I was offered an opportunity to go into sales in 79. And it just something that I took to very quickly, and then I got an opportunity to go and work for some other companies, and I always wanted to set up on my own. And in 1990 we set up on the North Quay, just over the sound shop, and we had 1.5 employees for a year and a half. Now my wife doesn't like being called a half.
The better half.
Yeah, but we weren't that busy, and she was working part-time. And eventually the business grew bit by bit, and in 1996 we moved to the Slane Road.
So you're out on the old Slane Road, and what do you do? What does Hibernia Steel do?
We're steel stockholders. Basically nobody in Ireland makes steel, so anybody for any project here, steel has to be imported. And we're, for the want of a better word, we're like steel brokers. So we're trying to guess the market, and it's, we have guessed it reasonably well, but like everybody else, the last 5 years has been tough. But we're still here. We still have all our employees, and we're very thankful for that.
How do you do that? Because with a bust like we've had, and talk about impacting, because a big part of your market was the Irish market.
Yeah, huge.
So it dries up. There's no building going on, damn all construction. How do you survive that?
With great difficulty, Gerry. We had to reinvent ourselves, basically. And just in case one or two of my competitors are listening here, I can't divulge what we've done. But, we're still here, still able to pay our bills, and it was a great humbling lesson for us, because we all thought things were just going to be fantastic and get better and better and better, and it wasn't a reality.
Where do you source your steel from? Obviously, steel comes into you ready-made to go on to projects and that. Is that the way? Where do you get it from?
We get it from all over Europe, but certain products come in from Turkey, and they would be probably the most competitive. We bring steel in from Spain, Germany. It's just we bring it further afield. But again, one or two of my competitors will be listening, so I can't divulge.
I'm not in cahoots with them, Ray. I have to assure you today. But in terms of the projects, then you supply to, are you someone who would supply steel to what we would call a small project, that maybe a once-off build, to something really major? Yeah,
it would depend. Like we do everything from a guy who's making a small trailer to somebody who's making a shopping centre.
Really?
Yeah.
It's that distance apart.
Yeah. I mean, we could have some guy who'd come and spend a couple of €100, and some guy who'd want to come in and be looking for £1 million worth.
So that is some swing in terms of size of customer and everything like that, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
And for your customers and that, I suppose the customers are the thing. They've been impacted as well. The people that are buying off you, a lot of them, I suppose, have gone because of.
Yeah, unfortunately, some really good guys who, with good hearts, just through circumstances, people not paying them, have lost everything.
How do you feel about where the country's going? Because you're a man in the heart of business and the heart of a sector as well that has been hit greater than most and at the fulcrum of the storm, as they say. What do you feel at the start of 2013? Where do you see this going? I ask many people who come to me because I'm interested from your experience.
Well, every year for the last number of years I've been hoping and wishing that we've hit the bottom and we're starting to move up. It feels we're there, but small business is still being crucified, and even though our banks are saying they're lending money. They're lending it to low risk. And the guys who really need it, are struggling.
And obviously it's people who take a punt at times that make things happen.
Yes,
Is that what you're saying to me?
Yes, it's the guys who, grab it by the seat of their pants and when other people won't, they're the guys who will make it happen. But unfortunately, our banks now, they'll want to have a look at your accounts and whatever, and they will lend to people who they don't think are a risk. And unfortunately, that's not how business works.
So we're stuck, really, you're saying. And if that continues, are you saying that that's an impediment to growth and moving on?
I believe it is.
Interesting. In terms of the people, you mentioned your half a staff, why we say hello to it this afternoon, but to the other guys and girls who've been with you for since you started up in 1990, how important have they been in your survival and in buying into what you've had to do in restructuring?
We'd be lost. I mean, we've a great team, and most of the people are with me more than 15 years. And it's the loyalty, and in reality, without their support, we wouldn't be here, because from the lad who drives the forklift to the lady who cleans our canteen, they're all very, very strong, integral parts of our company.
And would you feel an obligation or a loyalty to them, to do your very best to make sure?
Absolutely.
That business continues.
Absolutely. We have a unique system, and it's we have a profit share. And you only get a profit when we make a share of a profit when we make profits, but it keeps everybody focused, and we're very transparent, and we do a 6-monthly review to see how the company is doing and how everybody's doing, and all things going well, we give a profit share twice a year.
So I'll put you in charge of the public service and take Mr. Howlin out. Would you? What's your view on that, being a businessman who worked in the private sector? Do you think that we're getting a bang for a buck from public spending?
That's kind of a
double-edged sword.
I'd better put my soapbox away. It's something I believe that will have to be fixed, but I think it's like a big juggernaut. It's going to take a long time for it to turn around, but it's something I think we have to address.
We'll leave it at that, because I know you'd be dying to get going, but we have more fish to fry, as we say, this afternoon with Ray Moore, because he is chairman of the Des Smith Drogheda Youth Foundation, and we're going to find out about it and what's coming up shortly. Businessman and chairman of the Des Smith Drogheda Youth Foundation, Ray Moore, is with me on Late Lunch this afternoon. Ray, how did you become involved with this foundation in the first place?
Well, basically, I'm a good friend of Dr. Oliver Lynn. And in Bettystown Golf Club one day, Des Smith said to him, "Well, Oliver, did you ever do anything about that?" And I didn't know what they were talking about. So then Oliver had this dream, this wish that he'd love to give something back to the community, and it was his view that if you got underprivileged kids, disadvantaged kids, and gave them an opportunity to play a sport that they wouldn't normally get the opportunity to do, that it could broaden their mind, it could give them self-confidence, and who knows what could happen from there. And so Des said to Oliver, did you do anything about it? He said, well, actually, how about us setting up a charity? And that was in 2005, and in 2006 we set up the charity.
And you were involved in the setting up of it?
But it all happened in my house at lunchtime. And we got the nucleus sorted out. But through the help of some very good business people here, Tom Matthews in particular, he gave us some great advice, and a few other people. And we got it started, and the very first thing we had a race night down in Bettystown in the Bettystown Court Hotel. And we raised a few bob, not a whole lot, but it was our first function. And we seen that there was great support in the area, that people wanted to contribute and wanted to help. So that gave us great heart. So then we decided we'd run a function, and we got the famous Padraig Harrington to come along. And you know what? We've said to him since, and if it wasn't for him coming to the Drogheda Youth Foundation dinner dance, he wouldn't have won a major, because he won 3 after that.
So you gave him the G up, and
he gave the G up
to get him going.
A short while after coming to us, he went off and he won his first one, and the rest is history.
The rest is history, as they say. And it got you on the road as well, Pádraig, reciprocating, coming to yourself and giving you the profile and that. But you help underprivileged children and that, who might normally never get an opportunity. And you cover a range of sports. I know golf is your own sport, but it's everything, isn't it?
It's everything. I mean, tennis, swimming, fishing.
Yeah, I saw angling on it. I was delighted to see that.
In fact, that was probably one of the best things. We brought the kids fishing last year, and to see the joy, in a 12 or 13-year-old when he caught a fish. Now, the fish might have been half a pound, but it could have been Moby Dick to them. It was just
it doesn't matter.
It was wonderful,
absolutely
wonderful.
And it is great. There's great reward and fulfilment in that. And it's something you set a child off on maybe for life in a family that mightn't have a tradition of an outdoor sport or that. But you cover the gambit. But of course, it all comes down to, Ray, you mentioned the functions and that. It's all about getting the bobs in and the bodies. The bobs and the bodies really behind Des Smith. Now, you have your gala ball coming up, but there's no point even talking about that. It's sold out, isn't it?
Well, unfortunately, it's sold out.
Because there's a very special man going to attend this time.
Which is great for us, We've Paul McGinley, Ryder Cup captain, coming to town. And, we're so pleased about that. We're so pleased. I mean, that shows you the esteem that Des is held in. When, busy people like this can take time off their schedule to come to Drogheda, which is great for us. Yeah. And just for the record, by the way, if we wanted to get him next year, it would cost a lot of money. So he's doing this free of charge.
Yeah, you had him pre-booked as well.
We had him pre-booked.
You had your eye on the ball. Well, I think now I might go and have a flutter on the European team, because they said Harrington came and he won. McGinley's here, so we expect the very same with him, with the Ryder Cup team when they played the States. But on the night, you're still looking for a bit of support for the night itself.
Well, see, the only way that the foundation can help the kids in Drogheda is by the money we get. And when we get the money, we immediately start distributing it. So it won't be too long after that before we'll be going empty again. But we are looking for anybody, any business, any donation, no matter how small, how big, if they just send it on to us. Because everybody in the foundation is on a voluntary basis. There's no one gets paid. We've no full-time staff at all. So, I mean, every single penny goes back to the community, and we're very pleased about that.
Now, I said bobs, but bodies as well you wanted to talk about today, because you're looking for people. If somebody wants to become involved with you, would they need to have sort of a sports background, or maybe a community, voluntary work-based, or even professional work-based background? Would that be handy? It
would be handy, but we're looking for young men and women. When I say young, probably, in their 20s to their 40s, because regrettably, most of us are kind of a little bit older than that.
Just leave it at that. Don't go any further.
Yeah. And we're looking, basically somebody who's prepared to give 2 or 3 hours a week. That's all we need. That's all we need. Someone who'd have their heart in the community. We really want to make this a charity that counts, that really works for the young people of Drogheda.
You mentioned that you see children and you saw the expression of their faces when you took them fishing or angling or that with you. You couldn't put a price, I suppose it's fair to say, on taking a child from a position where they can't to where they can.
Yeah, absolutely. Our tennis coach, David Black, got a bunch of kids from an area in Drogheda and to play tennis. Now, I can't say too much about it but the one thing, there was a young lady who didn't have 2 arms. She'd 1.5 arms. But she compensated over a 10-week course. She compensated and had a way to serve. And at the end of 10 weeks, she won the most valuable player. It was amazing. And these kids were then presented with a certificate. And, I mean, you couldn't buy that picture. The joy was fantastic.
And from your experience, Ray, and the work that you do, the need for it, out there on the ground today, there are children, there are families, there are homes where there's very little, and children go without.
It's amazing, and I mean, it's just there are people really, really hurting out there. They've nothing left. They've nothing, all the time in deficit, and some of these kids are undernourished, and just basically the money isn't there. So we're depending on community leaders to tell us where they are, and whatever way we can help, we want to help.
So you're there to help, and that's the message this afternoon. Who, if somebody wants to support you, wants to become involved, what's the easiest way to connect with the Dale Smith Youth Foundation?
Well, the easiest way to connect, well, we have our website, obviously, that's up there, but anytime, my number is out there, 087 25 66 255, Ray Moore, and we will talk to anybody. And we're all for making Drogheda a really great place to live. And I'll just leave you with Oliver Lynn. He's got a very, very good expression, and this is his brainchild. And his expression is, it's far easier to build strong kids than it is to repair damaged adults.
Leave it with that today. Perfect way to round off. I want to say best wishes to you with the gala event. That's guaranteed success anyway, but with your work as well. And anybody listening today, if you can spare a few hours, if you can support them in any way, do it. Ray Moore, Chairman of the Dale Smith Drogheda Youth Foundation, thank you for joining me on Late Lunch today.
Thank you, Gerry.
You're with the Late Lunch on LMFM Radio. Can't believe the month of January is over today. Yes, that's Tina Leonard cheering. Are you really looking forward to the 1st of February that much?
Oh yeah, I know, January. Look, the thing is, I've got lots of friends with birthdays in January, so for them, no doubt, it's a very important month, and you know, there's lots going on. But listen, it always gets me down. January, it's dark and Christmas is over. You just feel a little bit low.
Yeah, it's
I don't mean that in a big, now really serious way, but now I have to say there's already a touch of spring in the air, though, isn't there? I mean, despite all those, did you hear the gales last night?
Did I? What? Thunder, lightning, everything we had here.
Didn't hear
There was a storm here in the area last night. Incredible.
Oh, wow.
So we had everything in one day.
Yeah.
But you know what? February's here, as you say.
February's
tomorrow.
here, and
it's
spring
onwards
has come.
and upwards
Yes!
from here. But
It'll be summer before we know it.
You talk about a dark January, in a mood point of view,
Yeah.
but from your business point of view and your work, we're going to talk about two things today, two massive issues that have
happened
hit
in
us
January.
in January.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk a little bit later about food labelling, very, very important in the context of the burger thing. And first off today, HMV closed its doors. I was in Grafton Street on Saturday.
Yeah.
Wasn't it sad to look
Sad.
at all the stock
Yeah.
there and everything?
We're used to it, and I suppose, we're used to going into stores to buy everything as well. So, but look, all of us, or many of us certainly, have moved on in terms of how we buy our music. There's bound to be some knock-on effect. But terribly sad, and most especially for the people who lost their jobs. But of course, as you said, there were loads of things from a consumer point of view that happened during the month of January. That had to be the biggest one, coming straight after Christmas. People had been given presents of gift vouchers. They hadn't spent them yet. They thought, Jesus, there's that, money down the drain. And at times like now, people get really irritated by that. And in the UK, interestingly, because of course the shops are still open in the UK while they try and save that part of the company. Initially they said no to vouchers, but then they did a U-turn, and they're accepting vouchers there, thank God. So at least that's good news. But
So
of course,
what
here
about
they're
Ireland?
gone.
That's what I was going to say.
Different
what about
situation
Ireland?
here.
Say somebody takes them over in Ireland. Will the vouchers be on?
No.
Gone.
I mean, usually when a company closes and somebody else, unless the company that, let's say a company comes in and buys another business, if they decide as part of that purchase to take on all, the liability they have for all the former creditors, which would be the longest shot.
Oh my, yes.
So I mean, really, for people here there's no store to go into, etc., so there's nothing you can do. You're an unsecured creditor, and secured creditors in a case like this are, the most important ones are revenue and the bank, so they get everything first. In other words, there's usually nothing left after that, so you're way down the bottom. So for people who have vouchers, if the voucher was paid for by cash, there's nothing you can do. If the voucher is paid for by cheque, nothing you can do. But there is hope if you have a gift voucher for HMV that was paid by debit card or a credit card, a Visa debit card, I should say, or a debit card. So a lot of the banks now, they're getting rid or have gotten rid of the laser as a debit card, and now we have Visa debit instead. So if it was paid for by Visa debit or credit card, those cards come with rules, and one of the rules is that if you've paid for something using those cards and you're not able to get it because the shop has closed down, let's say, then they'll issue you a refund. It's called a chargeback system. So if anyone out there hasn't already heard of this and does have a voucher, and of course if you've been given it for a gift now, you have to go back to whoever bought it and ask them, and some people mightn't be comfortable doing that. That's your call. But at least you should be able to get money back if you paid that way.
That's good news.
So that is positive, and a lot of people don't know. I mean, that's why paying with cash is actually the least safe way of paying. And I know, I mean, banks and business are trying to, get rid of as much cash as possible. Irish people still like our cash, though. We're one of the biggest cash users in Europe. But Visa debit or credit card, you've got that chargeback facility. It's there if other things go wrong too, but in this specific circumstance it can kick in. Go to your bank now, don't wait, because usually there's a 3-month sort of time frame on it. So go and ask them. All the banks have slightly different processes as to how to make a claim for that. So ask your bank what to do.
And that applies to any company where a voucher has been bought and they might have ceased trading.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so if you've bought debit card or Visa debit or credit card, let's say the shop has closed down and you're left, or it could be that you've ordered goods and paid for them and now the shop has, say you've ordered a sofa with a 6-week time frame, the shop is now closed and you haven't got the sofa, or it could be, as you say, that something has closed down, or it could be that you've ordered something from a site that turned out to be a fraudulent site. Let's say you've ordered concert tickets and then the date of the concert comes and goes and you never got the tickets, or you got the tickets and you couldn't get entry, and the retailer won't, whoever you bought the tickets from, the ticket tout site or whatever, doesn't give you a refund. Again, chargeback facility could kick in there. Or if you bought something from a retailer and they didn't deliver the goods for whatever reason, and you have tried to sort it out with the retailer, you can't get anywhere. That's another instance where you could go back to your card issuing bank. So there's lots of reasons there.
Don't pay by cash. That's the message we're saying as well. If you use those cards, there's more security involved.
Yeah, there's definitely more security, yeah.
But talking in general about vouchers, what I can't believe is there is no real legislation around this in Ireland.
Nothing. So they're not regulated. So, for example, there's no law that says you know that the voucher has to last a certain length of time or whatever. So without regulation, it all depends on the shop in question. So if you're operating a shop, Gerry, and you're selling me a voucher, then you tell me, well, it's going to last for 6 months. I agree to that when I buy it, and that's it. So you are making up the rules and I'm agreeing to them as the customer. So that's why, in some shops, it isn't even clear when the expiry date might be, which is absolutely dreadful. Other stores have very clear policy. It's printed on the voucher, which is the best way. And then again, another store might be flexible. So sometimes you might go back to a store and your voucher is just a little bit out of date, and they know you, or they like you, or they've good customer service, and they say, listen, no bother, we'll use that. And others, of course, allow you to use the voucher indefinitely. So there's some great customer service out there and some that are really more stringent. So you have to ask.
If there's nothing, up front from a shop or a retailer where you are, you should really ask them to say, how long is this valid for?
Oh, absolutely. And if it's a paper voucher and it's not written on it, you write it on it yourself, because you're not legally entitled to use it after the expiry date has gone. So it is very much going to be for the shop's goodwill. And by the way, now there's no equivalent research in Ireland, but UK research, guess how much they found was wasted?
I know you're going to blow me away with this figure. This, what would I say? Millions, but I don't know what millions.
Yeah.
Tell me.
Unused gift cards down the back of a drawer, right? Familiar to several listeners, I'm sure. 250 million sterling a year.
Goes down the tubes.
Each year. So, I mean, 200... Oh, God. I mean, what... Now, that money's already been handed over to the retailer, so the retailers aren't losing. You and me, we're the ones losing. So that's... Look, it's got to be some... Okay, UK is a bigger population, so bring it down for a smaller population. I would say our habits are pretty similar, so we would lose a sort of an equivalent amount. Huge waste. Interestingly... And it's not just UK, Ireland thing. In the US, several state governments have passed laws subjecting gift cards to same rules as unclaimed bank accounts, which means that an unused cash on a voucher, then it goes to the budget shortfalls and things like that. Yeah, some of the states in the US. So it's interesting. If
Enda's listening, don't even go there. You've filled us enough on everything else.
Yeah. But I suppose that, it should, of course. What you want essentially is you pass your money over to the shop. They have your money. If you let the voucher go and they don't accept it, they've money for nothing. And that sticks in the craw then of the customer who's got absolutely nothing for it. Yeah.
So what happens in the case of a lost voucher?
Well, it depends what sort of voucher it is. If you lose your voucher, normally, let's say it's a paper voucher, it's like losing cash. Good luck to you, unless you can find it, if the dog has eaten it or whatever, tough. So there's nothing you're going to be able to do there, which is why you should, stick it with a magnet in the fridge or something and make sure it's there and you use it. But if you have, gift cards, I mean, I'm talking about gift vouchers, and we've used the word gift voucher so far, and I'm thinking of a paper thing specifically. But gift cards, little plastic things that look like credit cards, they have some rules attached to them. They're a bit different. They're really prepaid debit cards. So it's like, money is uploaded onto the card and you could use it. And if you buy some gift cards, they will replace them if they're lost or stolen. So, for example, the one for all gift cards, and they work in thousands and thousands of. So you're not going to run the risk of a shop going bust there because you've got so much choice. They can be replaced for a €5 administration fee. But you have,
so €5 it'll cost.
Yeah, €5. Yeah. So if you have, now that's a lot better than losing the whole amount on the card.
But you have to have proof, obviously, that you bought it. You have to prove.
You should have the card number. So if you have one of those one for all gift cards, write down the card number somewhere safe. And other prepaid gift cards, usually they're shopping centres ones, they can be replaced as well, usually $7.50 or €8. So it's in and around that price for replacing those lost or stolen gift cards. So that's good news if you have a gift card. But the thing about the gift cards, whether it's a one for all, whether it's a shopping centre one, positive, number one, if you lose them, you pay an admin fee and you can be reissued, so you don't do everything. Positive number two in relation to the gift cards is because they're actually prepaid debit cards, they're subject to a law, an EU law, e-money directive is what it's called colloquially, and that's been enforced now only for a year and a bit. But it means, because they're subject to that, means that they have to hold the funds in a secure place. So if they go under, your funds are secure. So that's a positive for the gift cards, number two. But then we have to come to negative for the gift cards. Well, I was just
about to raise this because this has opened my eyes. Because I never realised it worked like this. So tell them now, there is a downside if you don't use up the credit.
If you don't, the thing about the gift cards is, would you use up the credit ASAP, or at least within the first year? Reason being, they all work on this system where they might be valid for, indefinitely or for 24 months or whatever. But what tends to happen is, if you haven't used the balance on the card, the gift card, or if you've only, if there's something left on it, maybe you've used some, but there's some left, after a certain period, usually it's after a 12-month period, then from month 13, an administration fee is debited from your card every month, and then some months later you go to use it and there's nothing left on it.
Happened to me. It happened to me.
Tell me all about it.
I had a one for all card last year, and I had it in my mind. Well, say I got it 2 years ago and I used it, right? And I went back and they take it in M&S, and I was in paying for some shopping, and I produced it, and the lady told me, there's nothing left.
And what
on
did you
card.
think?
And I said, no, that has to be. There's nothing on the balance. And I knew there was a balance on it. But only when you tell me that, the bell rings.
Awful.
It was eaten up. I hadn't used it, you see, for probably 6 to 8 months or more. And they were chomping in every month.
Chomping in. And isn't that a disappointment? And think the person who's spent the money buying you the gift, who've gone to the trouble of giving it to you, and then you think, what you were going to buy with it, and you would save yourself money that day in the M&S. Oh, it's so frustrating. It is maddening. And let me tell you that €3 per month is the charge from month 13 in shopping centres like Blanchardstown, Pavilions in Swords, Galway Shopping Centre, Dundrum Town Centre. Mahon Point in Cork is €3 a month from month 13 as well. One for all gift vouchers, it is, how much it is a month? It's $1.45, so it's a little bit less per month, but it's $1.45 for month 13. So basically, that amount will debit away each month until there's nothing left to debit. And you'll be there with nothing, like Gerry in Marks and Spencer's going, what? And I've no money to pay.
No, I'm not saying it was a king's ransom, but it was a
No,
nice
it's annoying.
£few
It's annoying.
that I was going to put towards the shop that week, and I hadn't got it at that stage. But there you are. And of course, we do have our big shopping complexes in the Northeast who all offer gift cards for all their stores.
And
in
it's
them.
handy.
And you better just check that.
Just use it.
Yes.
Because those admin charges that we're talking about that you suffered from and know all about now, they only tend to kick in after a year. So just use the card within the first year. So the absolute key to gift vouchers or gift cards is use them immediately, because if it's a gift card, you don't want that admin thing to be debited. And if it's a gift voucher for one store, you don't want the store to go out of business. Stick it in the fridge, use it immediately, and that also takes care of missing the sell by date, the expiry date. So that really is the trick. Use it now. Anyone who's got Christmas vouchers, use them now.
Get out there and use them. We can't give you any more
use
sound
them, don't
advice
lose
than
them.
that. Don't lose them. That is the message today. Tina Leonard is with us on Late Lunch. She's a consumer expert. You can read her in the Irish Independent today. And after the break, we're moving on to discuss food labelling. Tina Leonard is with us on Late Lunch, and we're moving on to Horsegate now. Is that what they call it? I don't know, Burgergate or whatever it is.
Still continuing anyway, that's for sure.
Did it surprise you?
Did it surprise me? Yeah, I have to say yes and no. People always say, especially with the cheaper processed foods, what goes in. But then, that's the cynical side of you. And then the other side of you says, well, no supermarket or producer is going to risk their profit, essentially, by risking their reputation, by putting an ingredient in something that isn't supposed to be there. It, has to be a mistake and all of that. And really, of course, we all know there's nothing wrong with horse meat per se, unless, it's not something you eat on religious grounds or whatever, but there's nothing unsafe about it. But from my point of view, it's about knowing what's in what you're buying. That to me is the crucial thing. If I'm buying something, I want to know what I'm getting. And with labelling, the labelling legislation, all ingredients should be listed, all of them. Doesn't matter even if it's a trace of something. If something is an ingredient, if something is on a required ingredient for the thing and for your product, and it's used in the product, it has to be listed. So even if it's only a trace of horse, it should have been listed. It wasn't in any of the products, and it was, that's because it wasn't known, at least throughout some of the chain, that it was there, and that's the problem, that you know what you're getting.
I've had a look at this, and I have to say to you, even by taking time to wade through this for quite a bit of time earlier today, it's not straightforward. Is that fair?
The labelling? Oh no, it isn't
really
at all.
Isn't.
It's very, very complicated, and not only that, but the legislation's about to change. It's not necessarily going to make it easier either. New legislation from Brussels on the way, but it's very confusing. Anyone will know, who's ever bought an item of food in the last number of years, the amount of writing now on the side of a package. You have the big picture, you have the name of the thing, and then you've got everything else. You've got information on nutrition, you've got information on ingredients, you've got information on what to do with the product and where it was made. There's so much information that, and do people read it all? Now, I go around the supermarket, honestly, I'm an awful pain, right? Because I go around reading the sugar content and the fat content. Stop laughing at me, Gerry. And I read the ingredients. But I know not everybody does that, nor does everybody care. But, and especially with own brand things, I always say read the ingredients. If you don't like what's in the ingredients, choose something else. But sure, if there isn't horse listed in the ingredients, how can you choose? But anyway, do you do that in the supermarket?
I'll tell you what I look for. I do, because I had the touch of the old heart. I watch for the fat content, at a high level, and I look for low fat in that. But then I'm told, should they pump sugar into that if they don't have the fat in, and then you're on the other.
Too much to think about.
There's too much to think about. And to be honest with you, you'd need to take a day off to go shopping if you were to strictly adhere and look at everything.
You'd also need to study what everything means on the label and what everything is on the label.
So anyway, they must put on the packaging first off, Tina, everything that's in it. That is a prerequisite.
Yeah, there's a load of stuff that has to appear on the label. The name, obviously, list of ingredients, quantity, net quantity, date of minimum durability, if that applies, any special storage instructions, conditions of use. Like this stuff, legally, it all has to be there. Like already, I'm only halfway through the list. Already the label is crowded. The name of, or the business name and address of the manufacturer or the seller within the EU, whoever is responsible for it in Europe. Place of origin in some cases, which we'll come back to, and of course drinks that have more than 1.2% alcohol have to declare that. So there's an awful lot of things that have to appear, and the rules go even deeper than that. Some of those things we've listed have to be in the same field of vision. Like, for example, the name of the product and the net quantity have to be in the same field of vision. So there are all these little rules. There's going to be improved rules and new legislation about the size of the font. So there's a load of things that whoever is doing up the label has to adhere to. And the list of ingredients we mentioned has to be there, and everything, as I said, absolutely everything has to be in that list.
Come back to the country of origin, because this is one now that raised its head, and particularly with chicken in this country. You hear this all the time, or any meats that come from elsewhere, come into this country, there's a bit of value added to them. They're changed in some way, they're cooked or they're coated or whatever. Legally, then you can say that product
is Irish. Yeah, I know. I mean, the country of origin thing is so important to all of us. We want to know where the food has come from. And I think a lot of the time, if you look at the food in the supermarkets, you're buying a chicken and it tells you the name of the farmer, or the raw chicken, the farmer in Ireland or whatever. You might be buying a ready meal and it tells you where the chicken is from or where the thing has been made. But that's really the supermarket mainly, and the producer doing that, because they know that's what we want. But legally they don't have to. This is the incredible thing, right? At the moment, under EU law, which covers us obviously, the only instances where you have to put a country of origin on the thing is if it's raw beef or veal, raw fruit and vegetables, honey, or raw poultry, but only if it's from a non-EU country, and only raw. So that's it at the moment. There's only one other instance at the moment where you have to put a country of origin, and that is if to exclude it would confuse us. So let's say you've something called Irish marmalade and wasn't made in Ireland, or something called Drogheda donuts, right, and they weren't made in Drogheda. We'd assume they're made in Drogheda or something. And if they weren't, then if that would mislead us, then you'd have to put actually made in Timbuktu or whatever on the back, right? So that's the only other reason. But yeah, what you've said, the chicken dinner that it could be something like adding breadcrumbs. So you're bringing meat in from a so-called third country, let's say, non-EU country, or it could be from another EU country. Most of the non-EU chicken goes through the Netherlands, so a lot of the chicken would come via the Netherlands into here. Could have originated mainly from Thailand and so on. So it comes in here. If it was sold raw and it was from non-EU, it would have to be under the rules labelled as such. But that sort of chicken usually isn't. It goes into ready meals. So you add your breadcrumbs or you add your tikka sauce or whatever the hell it is. Now it's undergone what's known as a substantive transformation. So you've transformed the raw thing into a completely different product. It's been done here in Ireland. The label can now legitimately say product of Ireland. Now there's actually no legal requirement to say product of anywhere on that particular food, but you can. It's not against the rules at all. You can say product of Ireland on it. So you and I go into the store, we buy it and we go, product of Ireland, yes, supporting Irish. And yeah, it's been packaged here and it's been given the bells and whistles here, but we don't necessarily know where the meat has come from. Now actually, very interestingly, I was looking at chicken jalfrezi ready meals recently, and I noticed on the M&S packaging, it actually said that the product was produced in the UK with chicken from M&S Assured Farms in the Netherlands. So it gave us, now not legally required to tell us anything, gave us all of that. And then the Tesco chicken jalfrezi meal, it stated that it was produced in the UK with chicken from Thailand. Again, didn't have to tell us that. I thought that was very transparent. That's what we want to know.
Yes.
Because it's then we can decide, well, I want it or I don't want it, knowing now exactly where the meat has come from. So it was good of those supermarkets. I'm sure other supermarkets do it too. But legally, there's no requirement for that. Now, there will be a change to the law, but not until mid-December next year. So what's next year? What are we now? 2014. So that's ages and ages away. But in terms of country of origin, it only extends the mandatory labelling of country of origin to raw meat from pigs, sheep, goats and poultry. So it doesn't, and it doesn't make any change to the the chicken meal or whatever. The only other thing probably that's worth mentioning, because it is a way off, is if you have a product where origin is declared, like your Irish marmalade, which I mentioned before, then under the new rules, at least 50% must be Irish for you to say that. So at least that's something. And if you think of marmalade, in fairness, the oranges and the sugar aren't grown here. But anyway,
no.
So there will be some changes, but it's not going to make that much of a difference in terms of, it's not a huge sea change in terms of country of origin. And what's more, they haven't, and this will be interesting, they haven't even yet decided, although they should have decided this by the end of this year, whether the country of origin, where it's legally required, should say EU or the individual member state. And I think that's a big one. For people exporting Irish beef that we're known for or whatever, you want to know which country. So that hasn't even been finally decided yet.
And there was a move, I know, within the EU, and I know Ireland were in there and involved in this traffic light system. You know the way you have your washing machines now, the energy rating, you can just nearly look at it. This is what we'd all like to see, really, simplistic.
That's it.
They couldn't agree on this.
No. I mean, in terms of nutrition labelling, there's legislation on that. When you can say low fat, when you can say low sugar, all of that. There's changes again from next year, from the end of next year. There's some improvements on nutrition labelling. But what they were trying to get at, and what the Irish government was hoping for, was some sort of consistent approach across Europe. And one of the things on the table was a traffic light. Very simple. Red, amber and green. So at a glance, if the fat is red, there's a lot of fat. If the green is sugar is green, there isn't. Very, very simple. The agreement was not reached on that, so that traffic light system was thrown out the window. And the problem was different countries actually already have different systems, like the Scandinavian countries have a completely different one. So people wanted to keep their own system, if you like. We already have the guideline daily amount, where you see on the front of the packs percentage of, so that's been brought in already. So, oh God, there's so much information. But then do you know what's happened since? So the UK government has been discussed, has secured agreement essentially from all the UK retailers and the food producers, and they've now decided in a spectacular U-turn, because they didn't go for the traffic light system, that they will introduce a front of pack traffic light nutrition label system. It'll be hybrid though, because they'll keep the daily guideline amounts as well. And that's going to come in from this summer. So that's separate to the legislation, still going to go ahead, and that's fine. It won't be for another almost 2 years. But from this summer, the UK are going to introduce that in their products. And that, of course, will have an impact here. I mean, if you shop, you mentioned M&S earlier, they already have the traffic light system on the front of their packs. I'm sure that they'll probably have to change the design somewhat to be consistent with whatever the new thing is in the UK. But we'll see it, Tesco, for example. So that'll be have a positive impact for us, I hope, unless
Will
it's
we
too
follow
messy.
suit?
Well, that's the interesting thing, isn't it? So our own supermarkets here, the super value, Dunn's, Super Quinn, will they respond as well? And the interesting thing is, food producers and food retailers can respond an awful lot more quickly than the legal system can. The wheels of law, they turn pretty slow. It takes years to agree to something and then years for it to come into force. So they can move, and they know we want something that's clear. We want to know what's in the product, and we want to know where it's from. Even currently, the supermarkets are giving us more in many cases than they have to. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with the nutrition, because that's really important. But of course, one final thing, just to annoy everybody, of course, you wouldn't have to be reading it if you made everything from scratch yourself. There wouldn't be a big long list of ingredients. And look, I don't do that myself all the time, but we all know.
That is the best advice you've ever given. Go and get the fresh
what's in it then, don't you?
You know what's in it. Ask your butcher if the breast of chicken are there, or the meat or anything. Be sure of where it's coming from.
Always ask, especially if something is loose in the butcher. Ask them, and not just. I don't think it's even good enough anymore to if the butcher says it's Irish or whatever, ask him who the supplier is, who the farmer is. Make sure you know what you're getting, because especially chicken that comes in via the Netherlands that has already come from Asia, it's days, it's gone through days and days of special storage and so forth. Isn't fresh off the farm like an Irish chicken would be, and for your other meats as well. So it's about asking the questions and not being too flummoxed when you're reading the products in the supermarket.
Think of the time time you'd save if you went the other route, bought the stuff, cooked, the enjoyment you'd get. You'd become a master chef.
Oh, lovely.
You wouldn't be wasting the time in the supermarket.
Yeah, and all your friends would want to come round to your house.
The house would be jammers. And when Tina Leonard would be there, there'd be
I'm coming, yeah. Gerry's coming too.
Down the street, that's for certain. Tina, thank you so much for joining us on Late Lunch again. Until the next time, thanks a million. Yeah, that sting there, Fields of Gold, and I want to dedicate that one to Yvonne Hand from Navan. You know her, she works behind the counter in St Mary's Credit Union. She's been there for many years, and she's the big 5-0 today. Happy birthday, Yvonne. That comes in from your parents, Colin and Patsy, sisters Martina, Tricia, Louise and Neve, your husband Michael, and your 4 children. Have a great one. Now, waste of time. Remember I mentioned it yesterday. What's the greatest waste of time in your life? Well, if you tell us your waste of time, I promise you a good time, because Neil Delamere is back with his new show Delamere Mortal in the TLT Drogheda on Saturday the 16th of February. It's around Valentine's weekend. Lovely prize for you. You'll go to the D Hotel, you'll have a slap-up meal for 2, you'll be staying there overnight, you're going to Neil Delamere, you're going to be whizzed up there and whizzed back and have a fantastic time. All I want to know is, what's the greatest waste of time in your life? And we've had lots of people onto us. Rebecca Everett, worrying about my assignments and exams all week and not starting till the night before. You divil, Rebecca, get going earlier. Playing Farmville for over 3 years every day. Hazel Ellis, will you give it up for God's sake? Watching TV, says Mary Darby. Standing in queues, says Adele. Washing my car, Emma McNally. Hoovering, a lot of people would agree with you, Angela, on that one. Snake on my mobile. I think clock watching is terrible, Gerry, an avid listener, loved the show. Standing in long queues, says Louise Gerrity. Giving out and complaining is the biggest waste of time of all. You get nowhere, says Jennifer Byrne. Ironing, now I have a few of those, but that one comes from Siobhan Burke this afternoon. And emptying the dishwasher, says Patricia Murphy. What's the greatest waste of time in your life? 53958 for your text. It'll cost you 20 cent. Late lunch at lmfm.ie by email, or you can call in now, 1850 715 958. She's a solicitor, mediator, writer, keynote speaker, blogger and director of Ablevision Ireland, and she's even had time to take up running last year to raise funds for blind children. She's on the line with me this afternoon from Cork. Good afternoon, Sinead Kane.
Good afternoon, Gerry. Thanks very much for having me on the show.
I'm delighted to talk to you today. Sinead, can you tell our listeners, how visually impaired are you?
Well, I have 5% vision. I have 4 eye conditions: aniridia, coloboma, nystagmus and glaucoma. So aniridia is where I take in too much light. The iris part of my eye is missing. So the difficulties that I kind of encounter is I take in too much light. So like you would take light through your pupil, whereas because I don't have an iris, I'm taking it in through the whole of my eye, you see. And I suppose with the glaucoma then, the glaucoma is where there's high pressure in your eye. So I have to take in drops twice a day, and it's essential that I take in those drops, because if I don't, then I'll lose the limited amount of vision that I do have. So I do, my mobility is quite good. Doctors are surprised how good my mobility is. They kind of think that maybe I should be using a guide dog, but I sometimes use a white cane. I more so use a white symbol stick. But I think society gets confused by the term registered as blind, because that's what I am. I'm registered as blind, but they kind of associate that with being totally blind, but it actually means 5% vision or less.
And you've been like this from birth? From birth, yeah, it's congenital.
So I suppose living with my disability, I have to be very patient with myself. I've learned the gift of patience, because there's sometimes people would say things to you and you just have to bite your tongue and just realise that they're not educated in terms of, say, disability. And I suppose be patient with myself as well. Be patient with, say, for example, driving. I'll never be able to drive. If I drove a car, I'd probably crash it. But I suppose just being able to accept that and accept things I cannot change. So, but you were mentioning there all the things that I'm qualified at.
Yes.
I suppose I'm also a director of Ablevision Ireland, and Ablevision is in relation to intellectually impaired persons. It's an exciting new Irish project, and because of it being disability related, that's why I wanted to get involved with it, because I believe in their vision and their mission, and their mission is basically they focus on ability and they focus on the creativity, and they're very focused on teamwork. And the founder of Ablevision Ireland is John Delaney, and Ablevision Ireland is based on Ablevision Boston, where students with intellectual disabilities pair up with other students on media courses, and it saves them going to sheltered employment every day. It shows that persons with intellectual disabilities can be very productive. So a piece of good news there recently is that the participants, the crew, they had their first documentary aired on Sky Television on Channel 212 or FreeSat 401. And I suppose this was a huge achievement for the students, because it just showed their ability. It was them who put together the documentary. And another kind of achievement that is going to be coming down the line is in May, there's the Ablevision Ireland Film Festival. So if people want to find out more about that, they can go onto the Ablevision Ireland website, and I just think it's a very, very worthwhile project, and that's why it's actually fun. It's organised by a local man in your area, John Delaney, and other people, celebrities from your area. Gavin Duffy from Dragon's Den.
Yes.
He was recently involved, and I suppose I have huge admiration for Gavin Duffy. Like, there was a launch of the Ablevision Ireland get together in November, and I went up to Kilsharvan House, and a beautiful setting, and just to see Gavin kind of connect with the participants, with the crew, and it just for me was all dropping, like,
unbelievable. And you also have a link with DKIT, isn't that right? They're involved in some way.
Yeah, they're involved. So the course, the Ablevision started out in DKIT, and the plan is to bring this project all around the country. And I know that in time to come, Ireland is going to be hearing a lot more about Ablevision Ireland, because that's the vision and the mission, and everybody in with the project is very determined with that. So that's why I'm involved, because when it comes to Cork, and I know it will be coming to Cork, I will be promoting it. And I think people, if there's anybody around the country who wants to start getting it involved to bring it to their part of the country, then they can go onto the website or they can contact John. I think as well, it just, for the crew that's involved, it just shows that, like, because I was always told throughout my life that, oh, you can't do this or you can't do that, and I suppose I had people around me who didn't believe in me, and I think that's why this documentary got made, because a lot of people around the crew, the participants, believed in them, that they had the capacity to make this documentary themselves. And I suppose as a reward now, another piece of good news is the crew is actually getting to go to the set of The Voice, the programme The Voice.
Yes.
So that's adding a bit of glamour to their life, that they're getting to go to that, and that was organised again by Gavin's wife, Orla Carmody. So I suppose I just look at Gavin, and I look at Orla, and I look at John, and I suppose that's why I want to be working with them on this project, because they put a lot of energy and thought into it. So.
And Sinead, can I ask you just something else about yourself? And look, what work you're doing, and as you say, anybody can achieve. That's the message you're getting across. You're a tough nut, because you came through a lot at school, and then when you went on to third level, you were advised by the people there not to study law. On you went, and you became the first person with visual impairment to qualify. Is that right, as a solicitor?
Yeah, well, it was actually in secondary school that I was advised not to go on to study law, because I was told that law was a reading-based subject, and therefore there was no point me doing it. And what's funny about the whole thing is that the person actually said to me, the careers advisor teacher said, if your disability was your legs, if you were paralysed, you'd be able to do law, because with your eyes, you study with your eyes. So as in, you don't study with your legs, so if you're sitting in a wheelchair. But I just thought to myself, what is this woman talking about? And I suppose that's when the pendulum swung for me, because when I was in secondary school, I was very badly bullied. When I was in primary school, I was very badly bullied. It resulted in severe consequences in my life. But that's when the pendulum swung for me when I was 17, when I said to myself, okay, I'm actually going to prove this lady wrong. And then I went on but it wasn't all plain sailing. Like in second year, I decided that I wanted to give it up because it was very hard, because these are kind of the difficulties I have with my disability. I have pain in my eyes. I get pain in my lower back from bending over. It takes me maybe a longer amount of time to do reading. I have to spread out the reading. So in second year, I decided, okay, well, this is all just too much hard work. I'm just going to give up law. And then my mother decided to bring me to London, and I thought I was going on a shopping trip, but I actually didn't go on a shopping trip. I ended up at the Law Society in Chancery Lane. And the reason why I ended up in the Law Society is because my mother brought me over to meet a judge who's totally blind. And when I met him, then I just knew then, okay, Sinead, cop yourself on. If he can do it, then you can do it. So I came back to Ireland, and I was full of confidence then, and then I didn't look back, and I went on and I got my law degree, I got my LLM, and I qualified as a solicitor. So I think life is all about creating opportunities for yourself and positive thinking, because that's what I strive every day, to create opportunities in my life and to consistently do it and to work hard at doing it. Because there last September, I went over to London. I met David Plunkett, a man who's totally blind. He was at Home Secretary, and that just shows in politics that you can achieve in politics. I'm also interested in women in politics as well, and the Women for Election, they're doing great work as well. And I don't know, it's just about creating opportunities for yourself, and I suppose that's what I hope to do each day, and that's kind of my goal anyway. And also to be authentic and have honest conversation with myself. I think the best gift that you can give yourself is to just know yourself, because we live in a society where you're taught to be everybody but yourself. So you're taught that if you're extremely slim, then that'll bring you happiness. If you've loads of money, that will bring you happiness. But we don't. So we focus on all the how-to as opposed to what actually gets in the way. And it's things like fear and shame, rejection, vulnerability. And people say that vulnerability is a weakness, and a lot of people look at me and they see me with a disability and they think that's a very vulnerable person. But I might have a bit of vulnerability, but I think vulnerability is actually a good thing, because when you express your vulnerability, you show your courage. Because each day I have to show courage in my life to overcome different barriers. Some days I have to reach out for help with assistance with different things. And when you reach out for help, asking people to help you, it requires having courage.
Sinead, you are a fantastic woman. I want listeners to find out more about you. Where can they get you on the net and log on to find out more?
Yeah, well, I'm on the net on www.sineadkane.ie, and I suppose just as I was saying earlier about the Ablevision Ireland website, I'm going to be doing a lot of work with Ablevision over the next number of months, and I would strongly urge people to go onto that website as well. And I was just thinking, Gerry, because I've spoke a bit about Ablevision Ireland on the radio with you, I was thinking that I can tell you about it, and I suppose you're listening to my story. But I think, say, even in terms of Ablevision, that it's best to hear the story for themselves. So you never know, you might bring the crew into your studio someday, maybe even around the time of the film festival that they're organising in May, and let the students themselves tell you how they're getting on with the project.
I'd be delighted to, Sinead, and it's been a real pleasure talking to you this afternoon. Sinead Kane with a K.ie. You'll find out more about this wonderful lady. Thanks a million for joining me.
Thank you very much, Gerry.
Take care of yourself. That's Sinead Kane there. And we will indeed talk to the people in Ablevision who are involved with DKIT in a big project there, as you heard, that's going to be rolled out nationally. Isn't she a wonderful woman? with such restricted vision and all she's gone on to achieve. The first ever to qualify as a solicitor, mediator, writer, keynote speaker. She's fantastic. I have great admiration for her, and she really does talk an awful lot of sense about life and how to deal with it, doesn't she? Late lunch, LMFM radio. After news and sport at 3, I'm going to be joined by Gay Byrne. Dunboyne Castle Hotel is the place to be tonight, but unfortunately, if you haven't got a ticket, you're out of luck, because an evening with Gay Byrne sold out in jig time. But today at Late Lunch, we have the man himself with us on the line. Gay Byrne, good afternoon.
Hello, Gerry. I'm speaking to you from Dublin in Ireland, and we've had the most unmerciful hail showers here for the last hour or so. So if we're breaking up a little bit, you'll just have to bear with me. Well, thank you for having me.
I'm delighted to have you, and you're coming across loud and clear. Thanks a million. So, the weather, as you mentioned, it's just awful everywhere at the moment, but tonight in Dunboyne there's going to be a real warm feeling. Can you tell us what the lucky people who have the tickets can expect?
Well, we're doing a little charity thing for one group about suicide and one group about childhood cancer. And I'm told, I haven't seen the room wherein we are appearing in the Dunboyne Castle Hotel, but I'm told that it is booked out with over 500 people. And on my way there now, my only prayer is that they'll all be able to see me and they'll all be able to hear us. Kathleen will be with me as well, because she fills in on the show for about 10 or 15 minutes, does a little poetry. And people love to be reminded of some of the poems that they did in school and that they haven't heard and they haven't recited and they haven't come across for many years. So that's always a very popular little spot.
You're playing piano?
Well, there's a keyboard there, and to describe it as playing it might be a slight exaggeration. I confronted on two particular numbers, and I tried to get the audience to join in, and this can be a very altering process at the best of times. But if they're in good form in Dunboyne tonight, and I'm sure they will be, I might get a note or two out of them. Don't confuse me with any of the great piano players for one single instant, because I wouldn't inflict that on anybody.
No, it's sold out, as I said, in jig time. There wasn't a ticket to be had. They're like chicken's teeth. That must be a great fill-up for yourself.
Well, it is, of course, but I don't claim credit for all of that. I think they are two extremely worthy charities, and whoever is organising the charities and organising the night did a very, very good job indeed, and quite clearly put on to the heads of an awful lot of people saying bye, bye, bye. And I'm quite certain a good number of people are coming tonight saying we couldn't care less about bloody Gay Byrne or anything else, but we're making a donation to the charities anyway, and that's a good reason.
I don't believe it for a minute. You're the star of the show, and we're going to leave it at that. In terms of your other things going on in your life, Gay, at the moment, I have to ask you about your chairmanship of the Road Safety Authority. It's been a tremendous success.
Well, so far we are doing what we were set up to do, and our greatest problem when we were put in being 5 years ago, our greatest problem was we were picking up on 35 years of complete neglect in this particular area. 35 years of a great deal of hot air being spotted in places like Leinster House, but nothing actually being done. And it was Minister Allen of Fianna Fáil, let us give him the credit, who decided to set up one solid authority called the Road Safety Authority, and he asked me to become chairman of it. And like the other members of the board, we volunteered to do that because we thought that we could make some solid contribution towards lessening the carnage on our roads. And so far we are going in the right direction. We have picked up on an awful lot of loose areas and initiatives which had been neglected for a great number of years, and nothing was being done about them. And the cumulative effect of those is that the rate of fatalities is coming down all the time, and we've had a very good year, and we've had a very good 5 years, as a matter of fact, and we will continue along those lines. I think we're blessed with a tremendous Chief Executive in Noel Brett and an extremely hard-working team, but we always go out of our way to give the credit for the reduction in road deaths to the Irish people, insofar as it was the Irish people who took the message of road safety on board, and the only reason the Road Safety Authority was ever set up 6 years ago, ever, The only reason was the outrage and consternation being expressed by the Irish people about the carnage on our roads. And they have taken the message of safety on board now. And most people in Ireland who are driving, most of them are making a really solid effort to abide by the rules and reduce speed and not drink and drive and not to use the phone and to use the seatbelts and all of that. There is still a minority of people who ignore all of those things, but we can only hope that they will come under the radar in due course, as they say.
Have you any particular area you intend to focus on in the next while? From time to time, of course, we hear about these awful crashes where there's young people and young men in particular involved. And Donegal springs to mind, I know a place close to your heart. What about education and in the schools and getting the message across, even before youngsters take to the road?
Well, that is going on all the time, and when people say this to me, they are people who clearly do not have school-going children, they do not have school-going boys and girls, and they do not have infants. We have started all over the country now with taking young children in preschool at 4 and 5 years of age. I've only recently been down to a school in Wicklow to get out the little helmets, the little scooters and the little tricycles. We are starting that early. We are taking them in primary school, and our community officers, our road safety officers in all counties are constantly in touch with communities and organisations and schools, giving the message of road safety, doing lectures, doing demonstrations, doing all of these things. It's a daily ongoing process. And remember now, for the first time, that in transition year, which used to be known in my day as DOS year, in transition year now you can do your theory test before you even go to think of doing your driving licence. And you can have all that done before you even leave school. And then thereafter you do your driving test and carry on. So we're covering the full gamut of age groups, because I always said that if you can instill the philosophy and the ethos of road safety at a very early age, it has to show dividends at some later stage. But it won't happen, and it won't start showing next Tuesday or Tuesday week. It's a slowly grinding process, and that's what we're doing.
It's fantastic to hear it, and I commend you for it. Now, back to your TV work, The Meaning of Life. I have to congratulate you on it. I really enjoy it. I try never to miss it. And you've interviewed, of course, the great and the good from not alone here in Ireland, but all over the world. Can I ask you, is there anybody stands out in your mind from all the series you've been involved in that made more impression than other?
Well, it depends on what side of the fence you stand on that. And we just 2 more to run now. And Maria Doyle Kennedy is on Meaning of Life this Sunday, and Christina Noble is finishing off the series the following Sunday. But we're working ahead then for the autumn. Starting out, it depends on what side of the fence. It is most amazing the beliefs which you encounter in people. You can have on the one hand Ian Paisley, who did a lovely interview, and who believes absolutely, totally, seriously that the words of the Bible are literally true, that there was a garden, that there was a guy there called Adam, there was a gal there called Eve, there was a serpent, and there was an apple tree, and it is literally true. And he will brook no interference with that belief. On the other hand, you find a good number of people who think the whole thing is bunkum and balderdash. They've no time for anything. They have no belief. They have no belief in an afterlife. They have no belief in a God. They have no belief in any of those things that most people, I suppose, most people take for granted. They have no belief in anything, and they think that at the end of our life, the fuse is flicked, and the rest is darkness, and that's the end. So you can have your choice somewhere from either of those extremes right through the middle ground, which is, yes, there is a belief that people have, yes, there is more a hope and a wish that people have, and that they lead their lives in accordance with their own morality.
You mentioned Ian Paisley, and obviously he made the impression and his beliefs. For you, the guy who sits in the chair and talks to these people, what do you draw from it? What do you believe?
Well, I never disclose that, Gerry, because, you see, I believe that it would be unfair for me to do so.
Right.
That it would spoil the interview altogether if the subject of the interview knew where I was coming from and what my belief. They might be prejudiced in trying to keep me happy or trying to make me deliberately go out of the way to make me mad if they knew what I believed in. At the moment, they've no idea that's the way it should be. So I never disclose what am I a sneaky guy?
We'll let people make up their own minds on that front and leave it with them. Before you leave me, I just want to, you're on your way, I know, to Dunboyne this evening, but for people who couldn't get tickets, as I said, it's sold out. You have 2 more shows, haven't you, coming up?
We're doing 2 more in February. We were in Bray in Feb in a lovely theatre in Bray in County Wicklow, and then we had a sold-out house in the Pavilion in Dunleary just around Christmas time, and we've been invited back there the night after Bray. And then we're doing 2 more in March. We're in Waterford and we're in Ballymaloo, and then in April we'll be in the lovely theatre in Limerick, and that'll be it.
Great stuff. Continued success with the shows and the meaning of life and everything else. And again, on behalf of everybody who feels safer on the road today, Gay Byrne, thanks a million for your role with the road safety.
You're very kind, Gerry. Thank you indeed.
Take care of yourself. That's
Bye
Gay
now.
Bye, Gay. That's Gay Byrne there. An evening with Gay Byrne in Dunboyne Castle Hotel and Spa tonight. But unfortunately, as I said, there's not a ticket available for it. But you heard those other dates there if you'd like to catch up with the great man himself. That's our lot on Late Lunch for this afternoon. God, we're on Friday already tomorrow. Don't miss the start of the show, because if you're into your sport at all, or if you don't know anything about sport, if I say one word, Arkle, I'm sure it rings a bell with you. Well, tomorrow we're opening Late Lunch talking about probably the greatest animal that ever graced race courses in this country and beyond, because there's a new statue on the way in his home village in County Meath, and he's been exhumed and the body of the animal itself brought back there as well. But we're going to hear more on Late Lunch tomorrow afternoon. And as well as that, Fiona Ferry's back. Always remember, first Friday of the month, she's in studio. If you'd like to get your name in for a reading with Fiona tomorrow, you can call in now, 1850 715 958. And for Beekeepers' final word today, if you want to take up the bees, County Louth Beekeepers Association Beginners Night tonight, 8 o'clock in the Chagas Centre, Dublin Road, Dundalk. Everybody welcome, and they'll really look after you, I promise. That's a lot on the show for this Thursday. Thanks so much for joining us as usual. From Louise Walsh and myself, we'll be back to do it all again tomorrow, 1:30.
Be a change to the law, but not until mid-December next year. So what's next year? What are we now? 2014. So that's ages and ages away. But in terms of